I'm talking now from the high school perspective. They're designed in such a way that we're referring to them as flexible spaces, so they have kind of a multi-use. It's not something we have currently. Teachers are not necessarily going to be housed in a particular classroom or two. They're going to have more of a central kind of teaching collaboration space, and classrooms can be used in a much different way. They can be used in a much more variety. To the course offering piece, space is at a premium here in high school. That's true, but you can do some good things in terms of course offerings with space. This will afford us a significant amount of space to continue to increase the course offerings here at the high school. I think since 2004, we've added 30 new courses to the curriculum. Certainly, I see that continuing. Additional space will allow us to do that. Continue to do that, and probably do it at a greater rate. But I feel very confident in telling you all that the space for classrooms is sufficient to meet the educational needs for the high school. I'm very confident in that.
I'd also point out too that our partner in this project, the Mass School Building Authority, who we collaborated with and who have very specific formulas for everything, worked with us to calculate the number of classrooms based on the student enrollment and also the size of those classrooms. I think you saw earlier on the slide that the new classrooms, the typical classroom, will be at least 850 square feet. Right now in the high school, we're operating with some classrooms that are 550 square feet. And we're also going to be replacing 18 modular classrooms and a modular cafeteria as well here at the high school. So, yes, next question.
Yes, the MSBA, they fund certain parts of this project, and other parts of this project they don't fund. So if you're looking at the 110 million and we're getting 50 million back, our project is actually costing, we're only getting funded for about 98 million. But if it's 105 and we're still getting 50 million, then only 6 million of that is being funded. So what is the water treatment plant and the administrative building actually costing us? Because, I mean, you got a discrepancy of $2 million there of what we should be getting a percentage for.
Well, I'm going to point out those are estimated costs, and we'll have better figures for you in December. But I'm going to ask Brad Doyle or Don Kelleher to answer that question regarding the cost and the reimbursement.
I think that it was outlined before. There are some specific costs that are excluded under the MSBA guidelines. One of them is the wastewater treatment plant, which I think we're carrying about, Chris, correct me if I'm wrong, about $2.6 million. And then we're also carrying an additional cost of about $1.5 million for the district administrative offices. Again, that's not a reimbursable cost under the MSBA guidelines. There's an additional about approximately $1.5 million that would be carried for a building to accommodate bathrooms and some team rooms down at the lower level, down towards the baseball field, multi-purpose field, artificial turf field. So, those are three pretty big chunks, but there are also certain guidelines that the MSBA has in terms of limits that they would be willing to reimburse up to. For example, they have an 8% of the total construction cost that they see is generally out there across the state as they're interpreting that as a reasonable percentage and a reasonable level that site cost should be. Not everybody is able to fit within that specific box. This site has its challenges. There are a number of elevational differences. So our expectation is that the site cost would exceed that 8% threshold. And so that exceedance, therefore, is classified as a non-reimbursable expense and goes into that same category. And there may be some others that Chris can speak to.
Just on top of my head, the abatement comes under scrutiny. The MSBA will not reimburse for abatement of floor tile. They will reimburse for abatement of everything else in a building. There's also a threshold of 20% on soft costs for my fee, the architect's fee, and all the mover and all that kind of stuff, which I think we're good on. So they have all these establishments. We're trying to work within them. Demolition of a building can go either way. We're going to push that to demolition, since they said that this building should be a knockdown. They typically don't want to pay for demo, but when they're a partner to it, that'll be something we'll seek their buy-in to.
Okay, next question. No? Yes? Maybe?
Just in reference to you mentioning that this building would be a knockdown, does that mean that the middle school would not be a knockdown in this project, or?
That's
If I
correct.
misunderstood.
And again, I'll give you Brad Doherty to answer that, but I think the determination was made that the middle school was an easier building to renovate and improve than the high school was.
No, that's correct. The middle school would be a very significant renovation. One of the reasons that we looked at that as a renovation opportunity, the attempt again to have a more economical overall package, was to be able to look at some of those classroom sizes, which are 750 square feet plus or minus, versus some of the classroom sizes at the high school, as has been discussed, are very small. And just the way that the building laid out and being able to reconstitute that gymnasium into some interior spaces, again bringing the light back into the building, we thought that was a good opportunity. And again, with the second floor on the existing middle school and having that as an opportunity for 6th grade academy and going through those various options. It's not 100% perfect because you're working with existing steel bricks and mortar. But I think with some creative ideas and working with the administration and the staff, we were able to come up with something that works fairly effectively.
Thank you. Yes.
I have a question about the knockdown, actually. So I think you said that you're going for the LEED certification, which is the environmental certification. Is that correct? Is part of the consideration of the knockdown what you do with the materials here, how you either donate them or recycle them?
As part of the LEED process, or as part of the sustainable design criteria, it's built into the construction manager's contract that they will have a certain requirement associated with percentage of recycled content for all different types of materials, for concrete, for asphalt, for steel. There's separate ways of disposing with all of those, and all of those are written into the specification. The construction manager oversees that both for self-performed work as well as for work that's performed by the subs. And there's a very specific reporting requirement through USGBC that has to be mandated, certified. So all of those things are going through a recycling process and then brought to proper recycling depots.
Yes, sir. Go ahead.
First of all, I want to thank you for coming here this evening to answer our questions and say what a good job you have done, and you've answered questions that I hadn't raised yet, and I appreciate that very much. But a very simple question: what is the beginning date of all of this, and what is the anticipated ending date?
Well, again, you're anticipating our next slide, but I'm going to ask Brad to tell you the beginning date. We still have, obviously, we need to do the submission in December. We need the MSBA approval in January, hopefully January 25th of next year. And then if that happens, we need to obviously take this to a vote for town meeting and for a town election for a debt exclusion override. That will be set up by the Board of Selectmen, and hopefully those elections, the town meeting and the election will be sometime in early February. And then, Brad, I think you could expand a little more on the design work that needs to be done before we actually start construction.
Yeah, one of the things that's afforded through the CM at risk process, which again the committee has adopted, if the project moves forward, is to take advantage of the opportunity to do what they call early release packages. So we would actually be able to, once we get the CM on board, as early as this spring, currently, if again, following a positive vote, we would actually be going out and starting some clearing and early site work packages, anticipating relocation of some of the modular classrooms, initial utility reworking and relocations. And while that process is ongoing in terms of that initial, that would be the kind of the lead or pacing item on the design, Then we would be following with the rest of the design so that as the contractor starts to complete that work, they're able to move into concrete foundations and starting to do early steel packages. So the steel design would be being ongoing while the early site preparation is going ahead of the building, so they can release that to the fabricators, and then the fabricators will have that. So it's almost like a just-in-time planning type of sequencing that you're able to do, because the CM is now part of the overall project team. So we're able to capture that economies in terms of overall project duration, and if the project is shorter in duration, obviously we have less costs that we would incur. In terms of completion, right now we're targeting to have the entire project completed fall of 2015.
Thank you, Brad. Chris wanted to make a comment as well.
And the other part of this is we've been working together in the planning. All the projects, the completion date, substantial completion, are not happening on August 15th. We're trying to set it up right now, the ideal schedule, so they're finishing in May, June. We have that float period over the summer to work out the kinks, move in. We're not setting us up for a critical happening at the end, and everybody's in July and August, so we got to get the school open. So the way Brad just explained it really puts us in a good position that we could have a couple hiccups on the way and still absorb them into the schedule without affecting curriculum and start of school.
And just so everybody knows, Chris is our project manager. He came on board from the inception. He's been working with us and has been essentially our liaison with the MSBA since we started working on this project. You can see the slide that's up here. I don't have to go through it all, but those are the schedules. The design documents will be done. High school construction will start in June of 2012. Should be complete by August of 2014. We then have the middle school construction June to August of 2015, and as Brad said, the project should be completed November 2015. The key is at the top. MSBA board approval, our town meeting, and our town vote for the debt exclusion. And again, that's entirely up to the Board of Selectmen as to when they schedule those town meetings and the debt exclusion vote. We're hopeful it will be sometime in relatively early February when we have the opportunity to vote on that. Any other questions? Yes.
Just another quick question. Do they mandate how many bids you need to have proposed for the project? Does the building association say you need to have so many prior to accepting a contractor, or how does that work?
Did you hear that, Brad?
Because I know that process probably can take a while to have bids submitted to do the work.
Yeah, there's a couple of different processes. Under the CM at risk section, when they perform their own work, such as a steel erector, site clearing, they're required to get 3 prices. And then they sit down with myself and the architect, and we'll vet out the scopes of those types of services. The other part, the electricians, the plumbers, the HVAC is established through it's called file sub-bid, but in this case it's called trades, where we go out. Usually you have to have a minimum of 3 pre-qualified firms, and then a lot of times you get it. A lot of times with the elevators, you don't get 3 firms, so then you assign an allowance to the CM, and he'll go out and buy it out directly. So the goal is always to have at least 3, but we're probably going to have 5 or 6 electricians, plumbing firms that are interested, flooring painters for that type.
Thank you, Chris. Yes, sir. I have a couple of questions. First one is if you could elaborate on the tax burden of this project on tax. Okay, let me answer that first, then you can ask the second one. Don, can you answer? Just repeat the question. You want to elaborate on the tax burden, so just go over that again.
Yeah, based upon a $55 to $60 million range in the cost that would be assumed by the town. What we've looked at is the average assessed value of a home in North Reading is about $450,000. The cost to the taxpayer who owned that $450,000 home would be between $700 and $775 per year. That represents about between 11.25% and a 12.25% increase in your tax bill. So if your tax bill is, your home is more than $450,000 or less than $450,000. If you looked at your tax bill, your annual tax